Good morning. I'm going to be doing another series called The Ear to Hear. Now, what do I mean by the ear to hear? Have you ever had a conversation with your wife and you've explained things to her? I know I have. I've mentioned things to her like 2 or 3 times, and she really didn't hear me when it comes around to something that needed to be done. She just didn't hear what I was saying. And I know it's been just the opposite for me too. I'll be looking right at my wife will be speaking to me, and then all of a sudden I'm surprised because we're supposed to go somewhere or because I was supposed to have done something because I really didn't hear what she had to say. We're all guilty of that. Every single one of us are guilty of not hearing what someone has to say. And myself, I believe in God. This series is going to do you good whether or not you believe in God, but I believe in God. And if you look at the Bible, over and over again, from the book of Genesis to the book of Revelation, Jesus said, "Again I say unto you, again I say unto you, again I say unto you." Obviously, Jesus knew we had a hearing problem. I mean, that was just quite obvious. And from the book of Genesis to the book of Revelation, you hear Jesus also say, "Those that have ears to hear, let them hear." Now that is very important. Those who have ears, let them hear. And we hear that a lot in the book of Revelations. And in the book of Revelation, where he's talking to the church, he's saying, "Those that have ears, let them hear." So there's a lot of people, and I can tell you that right now. God called me 3 years ago to teach people on how to be prepared and on the coming events that are taking place in this earth right now as we are in these end times. And so many people are not hearing what God is saying. And so I'm going to go through a couple of the things that are really pressing points in the United States of America today. So right now what I want to do is I want to show this one short clip of a Border Patrol security agent and what he has to say. And let's hear what he has to say.
I'm a retired Border Patrol officer. My main job was understanding and having intelligence capabilities about drug smuggling across the U.S. border and human smuggling across the U.S. border to bring contraband and people into the United States. That's what I did for 26 years. National security is a component of the immigration laws and the reason that immigration officers exist. Because the immigration laws are designed to primarily do just 2 things: protect national security and public safety. The component of national security is the economy and American jobs, because the foundation of American society, which is the family unit, depends on jobs and the economy for their livelihood. On the other side is the public safety, which includes public health, and that is so the people will be secure in their persons and their property from outside source threats. In other words, people coming in to take over America by force or by subterfuge. Right now, Department of Homeland Security is in charge of, through Customs and Border Protection, the apprehension and collection of the illegal aliens. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention is in charge of the screening with the U.S. Public Health Service. I've never seen the CDC or U.S. Public Health Service work together with the Border Patrol at the border, ever. The agents are telling us that they're seeing some people that are obviously sick, with shivering type illnesses, with possibly dehydrating illnesses like diarrhea and vomiting. Those people are disappearing. We don't know what they have, where they're going, where they're taking them. Surely they're being quarantined somewhere. We just don't know where. And even the agents don't know what the diagnosis is of these illnesses. Tie that in with the fact that these people can come through almost anywhere in the world and are funneling into Mexico. And we already know there's epidemic levels of certain diseases in Mexico and Central America. We don't know if these people are showing these diseases, if they're even being screened for them. The real troubling part of this is we know that in West Africa right now, there's an Ebola outbreak that does not meet the parameters of communicable diseases. Normally, Ebola virus starts in the jungle and moves into an indigenous population in the jungle, and then from there into a larger population area. What they're experiencing in West Africa in 3 countries right now is an Ebola outbreak in 3 separate cities at the same time. This is very unusual. It is almost as if the virus was planted in those 3 cities to infect that population. In other words, the virus is working in the reverse of what it has historically. Before it moved from the jungle into the populated area, now it's starting in the most populated areas in those cities and working through the population. If we had a control event, I'll give you an example. Border Patrol has a drug smuggling operation and they've been surveilling it. And after the car loads up and takes off, we stop the car. And the person driving the car hands us a diplomatic passport saying they're a diplomatic alien inside the United States. We stop right there. We call the Department of State. The Department of State takes it from there. The person is not prosecuted. Yes, we may or may not seize the vehicle and the drugs. The United States public never knows that happened. That's a controlled event. In this situation, where you have hundreds of thousands, literally, of people coming across the border, and you're only catching a small fraction, if you're not telling the public that 80 to 90% of what's coming across the border is not being apprehended, and you're putting their focus on this 10% that is being apprehended, only showing them the 1% that are 6, 8, 10 years old, and appeal to the compassion of the American people, and not show them the people with these serious communicable diseases, the fact that they are known gang members, they have the gang tats all over them, because they do not have a conviction in the United States, they're turned loose free in the United States. We don't know when CDC takes custody of one of these people from Homeland Security and whisks them off somewhere, we don't know where, what disease they have been diagnosed with. We know it's communicable. We assume it's serious. But that is being kept away not only from the agents in Department of Homeland Security, it is part of the controlled event where America doesn't realize how serious the threat is, and they're only being shown the compassionate side of the situation. That 1 to 2% of those 160,000 that appeal to the compassionate side of the people of the United States. What the people don't realize, that it is putting their own children at risk. Because these children are going to be put in schools with their children. This administration and past administrations have not lived up to enforcing the rule of law with regards to national security and immigration laws. The reason we're having the press of the Central American minors is because this particular administration has invited them to come here. The problem, as I see it, and as apparently because Center for Disease Control, Health and Human Services, and Department of Homeland Security are trying to make this a controlled situation, they're anticipating a large national crisis. When you see that FEMA is preparing for 200 million deaths in the United States, that tells you something. When you see that the government is controlling the supply of ammunition and that basic medical supplies are in short supply in southern Arizona, something's wrong. They are anticipating something drastic. If they had enforced the law, if they did enforce the immigration law, and if they had expeditiously removed these people that came here, this group of minors, they would have dealt with this situation. The way they are reacting to it is facilitating and inviting more of the same. So what they're doing is making a bad situation much worse. The real reason these people are probably coming here from an intelligence point of view is to mask or draw attention away from something else that is happening. Since the United States government is encouraging this, it is something that the United States government wants to happen. They have significant CIA, FBI, Department of State, Homeland Security, Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, you name it, in Central America right now, have been there a long time. They know what's going on. We're not doing anything to stop the obvious threat. 2 years ago, I became acquainted with a person that lives in Mexico City. Have complete, total confidence in this person as an informant. He's beyond reproach. And he told me, when I asked him, I was concerned about two things. And that was the trafficking of human organs in Mexico and the extreme violence, the beheadings and dismemberments that were going on in Mexico. Now understand, this person is pretty much as an unbiased observer that has almost unlimited access to all levels of both government and society in Mexico. Without hesitation, he told me that the most influential criminal organization in Mexico City at that time was the Russian Mafia. And through other sources, I knew that they were a very important component in Ecuador and in the tri-border area in South America. So when you start to think about the dynamics of what's going on in Mexico, think transnational criminal. Think of people beyond Mexico. Think beyond Central America. And think of criminals, period. The reason they come to the United States is because this is where the money is. The agent is much more afraid of his own government than he is of the transnational smuggler. Because they're not only messing with the agent's pay right now, they're telling him to run away from an assault. You know, if somebody wants to fight, leave them alone. Don't shoot at anybody. They just told the local Border Patrol here that they're not going to get any ammunition for their rifles until 2015. What's that about? They're not going to have any practice ammo for their Car 4s until 2015. Well, that's over a year away. FY 2015 starts in October 2015. So what is it that the Border Patrol agents aren't going to get, where historically Department of Homeland Security used to buy ammunition for the Border Patrol by the boxcar load?
You're saying the Border Patrol agents in Tucson sector have to ration their ammunition for the next 14, 15 months?
They can't use it. They're doing zero accountability. In other words, they can't shoot any of it, and it's being accounted for round for round. The rules are you have to practice, you have to qualify, demonstrate proficiency at a minimum level with each firearm that you're authorized to use. Handgun, shotgun, rifle. When the agent is, one, not allowed to maintain his basic proficiency with the firearms that he uses and train with them on a quarterly basis, he is less proficient. If he is less proficient and doesn't have access to ammunition, he's less likely to take that firearm in the field and have it available should he need it. That raises the risk level to the individual agent, because the purpose of having the superior fire force is to deter someone from attacking you. The whole idea of asymmetrical warfare is to defeat your enemy from within. It is not to attack him from without. Of course, the threat comes from without, but they have to be inside of the United States to affect a successful warfare strategy. If asymmetrical warfare is going to be successful, the first thing that has to be done is to compromise America's defenses against invasion, because they have to have their personnel inside the United States to affect the infrastructure. our hospitals, our schools, our electric grid, our power supplies, our water supply. Basically, what we call infrastructure. All of those things create our infrastructure. But they have to affect the degeneration from inside the United States. The markers that we're seeing that indicate this is asymmetrical warfare is because the reaction that the United States is taking is they're taking the opportunity of inviting these illegal aliens to come here. They're concentrating them in one place in the United States, the Rio Grande Valley, and they're drawing the resources that are protecting the rest of the United States border to care for the illegal alien children, to help with the overflow of the minors, to transport, to take care of the needs of these people while they're in Homeland Security custody. All this takes the resources that are protecting America at the border off of the border. So now the borders are wide open. This gives the people that are trying to get their infrastructure, their personnel, their drugs, their dirty bombs, their biological weapons, their chemical weapons into the United States without being noticed. Because this part of the border is open. It is not being patrolled. It is a perfect military strategy. It doesn't raise any eyebrows because we're focused on the children. But we need to focus on our children because this is asymmetrical warfare. Everything says it is. And the way the United States government is responding to it is concealing that fact from the American people. In other words, they're assisting in the downfall of America. And you need to understand that.
Now don't forget, Jesus was saying to us that our ability to understand his teaching depends upon whether we have learned to hear. What did you just hear the man say? There is people who are trying to pull down the United States of America. Yes, they're tugging at our heartstrings about these poor children that are coming across, but that is such a small portion of it. We have thousands and thousands of kids coming across who are in their teens, who have already killed many people, and they are coming across to do harm to us. When you look at how many people, how many military people, how many generals, how many people that this administration has fired from their jobs, they've handing pink slips out all over the military. Several years back, there was a questionnaire sent out to military people. Would you disarm the people of the United States of America? And many of them said no, that they swore an oath to uphold the Second Amendment and that they would not disarm America. Those people have been given their pink slip. Those people have been asked to leave the service. We now have a generation of people, I believe, that they are bringing in that will disarm the American people. They will say, you go take that guy's stuff and that stuff is yours. We need to be concerned. Yes, I believe we need to pray for this nation, but we need to be concerned. We need to have ears to hear what is going on around us and stop believing the lies that we are getting on ABC, NBC, and CBS. Even those channels now are starting to expose a little of this. But if you really want to know what is happening in the world, you have to go to the internet to find out what is happening. Because it's one of the most diabolical things, and we are being destroyed from the inside out. Next, I would like us to listen to a Navy general. Now, this is a general who right now is in the service, and you never, ever hear sitting generals speak like this. And in fact, we will probably see this general be asked to leave the service very soon for the things that he has said.
Well, also developing tonight, it is almost unheard of for a Marine officer, let alone a member of the Joint Chiefs, to openly criticize the White House. But the nation's top Marine, General James Amos, appeared to go after the commander-in-chief last week, suggesting the disaster of a developing terrorist state in Iraq could have been avoided if only we had done things differently. Listen.
I find it hard to believe, knowing how Iraq looked when we left in 2010, when we left the Marines, and then what it looked like when the last U.S. forces left, that we would be in the position we're in today in Iraq had we had the right forces, the right leadership, the right mentoring, the right government courage.
Courage was the last word. Colonel Oliver North is the host of War Stories and author of the new book, Counterfeit Lies. This is extraordinary. Explain to the audience who he is and why this is so unusual.
General Amos is the Commandant of the Marine Corps. He's the senior Marine, and it's about time somebody in Washington stood up on their hind feet and told everyone what they know to be true. It's very clear that General Amos, and by the way, he is a friend. I have not spoken to him about this, knowing we were going to talk about it, so I don't want to drag him down with me. But let me just make an observation, Megan. It's not just about Iraq. It's about the abysmal state of our military and General Amos's Marines. He doesn't specifically talk about the president. He's talking about national leadership, and he is sure embarrassed the dickens out of Dempsey and the other members of the Joint Staff. He realizes that the finest military that's ever existed on this earth is being systematically dismantled, and we're calling them all home and throwing them out of the service. For the very first time since the American Revolution, every single American in a uniform of the Armed Forces of the United States is a volunteer. And if we can't retain today the quality of the force that we're going to need tomorrow, we won't be able to protect our citizens or our interests around the globe. So what he said is very important. It was all done at a Brookings Institution question and answer period. It was not an off-mic accident. He knew that mic was on. He sent a very clear message about the need for strategy, retaining the right people in our military, and what most needs to be done is standing up for America's interests. The leadership of the nation needed to pay attention to this.
And talking about the absence of leadership, the absence of courage, and then he went on to talk about, we have this clip, about how he suggested the president has, or the leadership, has a naive worldview. Listen.
We may think we're done with all these nasty, thorny, tacky little things that are going on around the world. And I'd argue if you are in that nation or you're in part of that, it's not a little tacky little thing for you. We may view it on this side of the Atlantic or the Pacific. It's a big deal for them. But we may think we're done with them, but they're not done with us.
Is he going to get in trouble for this, Colonel?
Well, it probably means he's not going to get a high-paying job on some big poobah corporate board when he gets done. Senior officers on active duty rarely ever speak this way. I can think of MacArthur to Truman. I can think of Major General Jack Singlov, who actually resigned his commission and then spoke about abandoning Korea to President Carter, but he had already retired. He'd resigned his commission to make that speech. Look, on Iraq, everyone paying attention now realizes that Obama should have taken the trouble to negotiate that status of forces agreement. And what's now happening in Mesopotamia is awful for those who had to fight there. He starts talking about that, and he means it, because his Marines took a terrible blow fighting in Iraq for all those years, 7+ years. And we're not going to have the ability to influence events if we keep cutting our defense budget. It's unconscionable in this very dangerous world. And kudos, as I say, to General Amos for speaking this way. He knows that diplomacy only works if it's backed up by military prowess and a strong economy, and today we have neither.
He also talked about the growing concern about these troops who sacrifice so much becoming disillusioned as their gains disappear. Colonel Oliver North, thank you, sir. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Megan.
Now that we have our ears tuned up, what we're going to look at next is 2 different news broadcasts. We are going to look first at mainstream media at an event that took place, and then we are going to look at Fox News. And we're going to see the difference in these two. And I think you will find it quite amazing, the difference in the story between what mainstream wants you to hear and know and what is really going on in the world.
It's now 8:04 new this morning. We're finding out the possible cause of a transformer leak at a PG&E substation near San Jose. KTVU's Tara Moriarty joining us live near Metcalf Road to tell us why vandalism may be to blame. Tara?
Yeah, and we're also hearing reports that federal agents may be taking part in this investigation due to the seriousness of exactly what happened. And in light of what happened in Boston, there's a lot of frayed nerves, so we'll definitely keep you posted on that. Right now, we want to show you some new video that we just got in from Chopper 2, and it shows oil spewing out of at least one transformer, and it appears to be leaking under 7 transformers. PG&E told KTVU that vandals broke into the substation off Coyote Ranch Road near Highway 101 and Metcalf around 1:30 this morning. Gunfire erupted and bullets pierced the transformer, creating this leak. Now, officials say a couple thousand gallons of insulating oil leaked, and right now hazmat crews are trying to vacuum up that oil because the danger is that, a leak poses a fire hazard. But in speaking with firefighters, the chances of that happening are pretty slim because the oil would need to heat up to more than 600 degrees to ignite, I should say. Now, CAL FIRE is the lead agency on this, and they are containing the leak, trying to ensure that no PG&E customers have service interrupted. They're also going to be mitigating any environmental impact. And so far, no neighbors have had to be evacuated. But we do want to mention back here live, you can see this is actually the corner of Monterey and Metcalf. And this is where sheriff's deputies are stopping all of the traffic and they're turning them around. They're not letting them in between Metcalf and Blanchard. So you can see all of these folks having to turn around. They're not letting them across the freeway either. We're on Monterey, which runs parallel to 101. So authorities are suggesting that instead you take the Burnell exit instead of the next one to avoid this area altogether, as it's going to be several hours before they can get the situation under control. Right now, we're reporting live from near San Jose. I'm Tara Moriarty, KTVU, Channel 2 News.
All right. Now you've heard mainstream media report on an event that took place up in San Jose. Now, I know a little bit more about this because I talked to a friend of mine who actually works for PG&E, and we talked about the fact that it could have been a terrorist attack. But seeing that we're talking about hearing, I want you to really hear the difference between the report on mainstream media, the news broadcast on mainstream media, where they bring things down to the way the administration wants you to hear it, the government wants you to hear it, versus a report on someone like Fox News. The next one you are going to hear is from a judge. She's an actual judge, and she's a reporter on Fox News. And when she investigates something, she digs down deep into it. So again, we're talking about hearing. Listen to the difference between the report that mainstream media, that the government wants you to hear and know, and what is really taking place in the news today.
Welcome to a special edition of Justice. I'm Judge Janine Pirro. Tonight, an hour-long investigation into the dangers facing the U.S. power grid. What would it take to bring it down? And if our system did break down, how would you survive? And what would it be like in the dark? I'm in Lower Manhattan right now, standing in front of a power station, a typical power station. But last month I went to a meeting just a few blocks from here in the freezing cold. But when I came out of that meeting, I was frozen. Not from bitter temperatures, but from fear. I learned things that no one is talking about. Things that can change my life, your life, and the lives of everyone you know forever. I started thinking about how fragile life is and how ill-prepared we are for this. Tonight, in an exclusive justice investigation, the vulnerability of America's power system, the United States electric grid. Are we ready for a terror attack? And what would we do if the lights went out? Now, tonight is about a series of forces and individuals who, instead of doing the right thing for you and me, are playing politics and gambling with your safety and our way of life. Now, who of us could ever envision 9/11 happening? But the difference between 9/11 and what I'm about to tell you is that we know that this can happen. The question is not, will it happen, but when will it happen? And the consequences would be 1,000,000 times worse than 9/11. One day, you're enjoying the comforts of life. The next, everything is different. Civilization as you know it would be gone. An electromagnetic pulse would destroy all electronics and the transformers that power everything, anything, with an on-off switch. Your hot water heater, your refrigerator, your dialysis machine. Hospitals are closed. Grocery shelves are empty. Most of the food you have at home is spoiled. And forget about your bank accounts. It doesn't matter. What you have in your pocket is all you can access. I imagine myself waking up to total darkness. Nothing in my home working. Food spoiled. Water not running. I rummage through whatever last cans of food I can find. I'm alone because my kids and loved ones have no way to get to me. And I'm afraid to leave because it's too dangerous. People are desperate. They're hungry. Our civilization thrown back to the Dark Ages. I'm scared and helpless, and I don't know how I can survive. If there were to be such a catastrophic failure, our death toll would be staggering. A blue ribbon commission predicting mass fatalities, horrific loss of life, some even saying 9 out of 10 Americans would die. This is not science fiction. It's real. And tonight we'll tell you about the ways that it could happen. Solar flare, an electromagnetic pulse, a nuclear device, a cyber attack, or a simple physical assault, all of which would break down our society as we know it. You know, in this complicated world that we live in, many wish us destruction. But it is he who has the capacity, ability, and inclination to act on that ill will against America. It is he against whom we must be ever vigilant. Now, scientists tell us that an EMP created by a nuclear weapon at high altitude is the most efficient way to take out America's electric grid, telecommunication networks, and all critical infrastructures. As I stand here now, North Korea has a satellite the size and weight of a small nuclear weapon, orbiting at an altitude conducive to an EMP attack, and it approaches our country from the south, a direction which lacks early warning or missile defenses. The threat could also be from the sea. Fact, 6 months ago, 2 full-up nuclear-capable missiles on their launchers were discovered in Panama on a North Korean flagged vessel hidden under sugar bags. Reports are that our grid has already been penetrated by our enemies, leaving behind software programs that can compromise it. Now, there are other ways to take down our grid. A simple, direct, physical attack, like an assault on a local substation. Fact, 10 months ago, unknown attackers attempted to blow up a San Jose transformer substation in a military-style raid. No one has been apprehended. The FBI and local police call it vandalism, as if Billy Bob and Bubba, after a few beers and a night out, get their hands on AK-47s and surgically knock out 17 transformers, 16 circuit breakers, after cutting underground fiber optic cables and outsmarting security cameras and motion sensors. These terrorists are still out there. And less than a week later, in a shockingly similar attack in Tennessee, a suspect on a boat fired shots at a nuclear power plant and then engaged with police. A trespasser, you might say? Someone armed from the water willing to engage in a shootout with law enforcement is certainly not Bubba with a few beers in him. And even if no one attacks our grid, the sun will. The Earth is exposed to intense solar flaring roughly every 150 years. The last time it occurred was 1859. Do the math. We're due. Now, I'm not saying this to panic anyone, but everyone, including our enemies, know that an artificially created electromagnetic pulse will shut down all power, which risks our complete survival. Now, the United States possesses the world's largest power distribution system. What is our government doing to make sure that our grid, likened by some to that of a third world country grid, is really protected? Are we ready for an attack on our grid and the catastrophic failure that would result? And that's my open.
Quite an opening, huh? And now you can really hear the difference between two news broadcasters. And for what a lot of you may not know, but back when Ronald Reagan was president, one of the things he tried to get through Congress at the time was a system that would protect us against EMP attacks and EMPs coming in from solar flares. But the democratically controlled Congress at the time called it Star Wars and wouldn't release any funding for them. It's kind of funny how Ronald Reagan could see these things into the future. Now, I want to wrap this thing up, and so the next clip that we're going to show here is, what do the Border Patrol think about our open borders?
In the meantime, some of you might have seen this once or twice. Take a look.
How you doing, U.S. Border Patrol? How many people on board?
Me?
U.S. citizen.
Yeah, but does it really matter?
Not anymore, unfortunately. Thank you.
You do.
All right, so Border Agent Chris Cabrera, who says, that view, it's typical among those working our border right now. Agent, it's very, very good to have you. Thank you. You sound like a cynical lot these days. I can well understand, but what that guy was saying is typical of how a lot of you feel?
Well, I believe it's a pretty accurate cross-section of the morale. However, our agents, when there's a job to be done, when there's work to be done out there, they get up for it and they perform to the best of their ability. It's just that morale is at an all-time low right now.
What brings the morale down, Chris? What happens? What do you see, or what do you have to accept?
Well, our agents they're not allowed to do the job they were hired to do. We're walking more and more people out the door, whether they're catch and release, the family units, the criminal aliens that are coming in, some of these young gang member kids that are coming in, and there's no criminal history in the United States. We're releasing them out the door, and more and more it just gets frustrating.
Where are they released?
Into the country. If they have a family in the United States, they'll release them to the family, even if they're admitted gang members. We've had a couple that had admitted to murders in their home country. They were 17 years old, 16 years old, and the United States government thought it fit to release them to their parents here in the United States.
So you have to follow the law, and if the law says release them, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, for the most part, we're the apprehension side of it. We catch them, we process them, and then we turn them over to ICE, to the detention side, and then they make their final decision as to where they're going to go. And 9 times out of 10, they don't go back to their home country.
Chris, when did this start changing? What happened?
Well, I know in 2005, 2006, we were catching a ton. We started mandatory detention, mandatory removal. Somewhere between then and now, I believe 2008, 2009, we started to relax the rules a little bit, and then we just got overwhelmed this past year, and to the point where all of our facilities were overflowing. We couldn't keep up with it, and they started releasing.
All right, so when you said you couldn't keep up with it because the demand was such that so many were coming, was it just that, all right, only detain those who are the most egregious? Because you're just telling me here that some of you are capturing murderers and the like. I mean, what's the line at which you hang on to somebody?
Well, they found the loophole with the unaccompanied children, the women and children. We don't have anywhere to house these women and children, and if the child has no family back in his home country or claims he has no family back in his home country, we have to release him to a parent who's here, and that's where the loophole is. Even if he is a confirmed gang member, a confirmed criminal, even by
Have you or any of your colleagues, real quickly, Chris, ever said, no, I'm not going to do this. This is wrong?
Yeah, our guys, they will put up a good fight with some of the managers. Unfortunately, it's not Border Patrol that's doing the releasing. We're turning them over to the ICE facility, the immigration guys, and they're the ones doing the releasing.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Chris Cabrera, thank you very, very much.
Well, it's time to wrap this video up and put it in the can, so they say. One of the first things I want to let you know in this is the fact that my wife and I love kids. We're not talking about kids here. We're talking about illegal. My wife and I support missionary groups around the world. My wife and I do missionary trips down to Mexico, and where we are working with kids all the time. So it's not kids. Again, as we saw through this thing, the kids are really the smoke screen. What we're talking about is illegal. The word illegal. Now, what they're saying, let's don't call them illegals anymore. The UN has got in it. We've got to call them immigrants. We've got to call them some different name. No, it's illegally. They are coming here illegally. And that is the way that this world has become. What is right is wrong, and what is wrong is right. And they are coming here illegally. We have thousands and thousands of them coming here illegally. And folks, that's just crazy. I mean, come on. We can't even afford to take care of our vets in this country. People who have given their lives, people who have served this country so that you can have freedom in this country. And we can't even take care of them. We can't take care of our elderly. We're cutting Social Security. We're cutting Medicare. I mean, this is crazy. We have families all over the place that are out on the streets now. We have people who have lost their jobs that say, oh, well, the unemployment rate is going down. Yes, a person who used to make $70,000, $80,000 a year has finally got another job making $24,000 a year. If you think things are getting better, you have another thing coming. So here we have all these illegals that are coming in. Now, my parents were immigrants. My father came from Norway. My mother came from England. And they came in legally. They came in through Ellis Island, and they did it legally. My father went on to join the armed services, and he became a war hero. Both my mother and my father, they both worked hard in this country, and they became citizens in this country. They fought for this country, and that's the way that it should be. If you look at Australia, Australia made the same mistake that we are making, and they allowed all these illegals to come into Australia. And before long, Australia was broke. They didn't have money to take care of their own. They didn't have money for police, and they had riots. And finally, they overturned the government there, and they put a new government in. And so now it is illegal for illegals to go into Australia. They keep them out of Australia. If they're coming in on small boat, they take them out and drop them off at an island. If they're coming in big boats, they turn them around and send them home. And if somebody happens to make it into Australia, they stick them right on an airplane and take them back to where they came from. And they pay the ticket. And that's the way that it should be. That's what we should be doing here. We should make it easy for people that want to come here legally to come here legally. But if you are illegal and you're coming here illegally, we need to turn you around and send you back to where you have come from. I mean, we've seen all this nutty headlines out there, all this chaos around the world. You know, we've watched tens of thousands of aliens, many of them dangerous criminals. I mean, we're talking dangerous criminals out there. I mean, it was just last week that a family was out fishing, and 2 illegal aliens shot the father and killed him, and shot the grandfather in the head. I mean, this is happening all the time. They're raping people, they're robbing people, they're killing people. And this is happening all the time. We're seeing all these people come up from Mexico, Central America, from the Middle East, from all places around this world, apparently with permission from the Obama administration. We're also seeing the cost of living skyrocket. We're watching our gas go up. We're watching our food go up. Well, electricity is going up, clothes are going up, everything is going through the roof. We've got people that are making less money, living on the street, all these illegals coming in. I mean, it's a dangerous situation. We have riots that are going on now, and we've seen the police force that's like an army that are actually making things worse, people burning down their cities and all that. You're going to need to be able to protect yourself. If you don't have a weapon, you need to get a weapon. And we've got some courses on that. But it's a dangerous time that we're living in now. And so what I highly recommend is, I had put out a YouTube video several months ago called The Steps to Surviving an International Crisis. I recommend that you watch it. I have several good YouTube videos. All you need to do is go to YouTube and put in Gordon Hansen, and my YouTube page should come up. And the one that I really recommend, because it's a A to Z on how to take care of your family in any kind of a crisis, even if it's just an earthquake or a storm or a flood, any type of a crisis. So I highly recommend. It's called Steps to Surviving an International Crisis. And right now I just want to say thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been educational for you. And we'll be out with another one soon. I've got all kinds of people who have told me different topics that they would like me to do. So we'll be coming up with one of those soon. And so I just say, God bless you, and God bless your family, and God bless America.